Hi, folks. Thank you for coming to Back to Basics for Season 3. Today, we're going to speak with Alara Sage, and we're going to find out what she's all about. But mainly, what we're going to talk about today is spiritual and sexuality. How these two words come together in her realm, in her circle, and what does that mean to her? So let's go and talk to her and understand where she's coming from and why she's doing this. And I'm telling you, we're going to have the greatest time. So let's speak with Alara and get to know her better on Back to Basics. How are you, folks? My name is Girish Pelly. As you know, we have already done some intro already, and it's very exciting to have Alara on Back to Basics. And we're gonna go and talk about many different aspects when it comes to Alara. Pleasure is one of them. Love is another. Spiritual is another. But we'll get into all that stuff and why does she do all this? And let me tell you, in a happy way, in a loving way, in a supporting way, I was kind of stalking her on all the stuff that she does. And I'm telling you, she is fabulous. When I say fabulous with a capital F, and I'm telling you, F not failure, F as in love. I mean, that's how I'd look at it in the opposite, the upside down L. So let's go and talk to her and get to know her better. How about that? So, Alara, how are you? Thank you for coming to Back to Basics.
Yes, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you,
Thank you,
thank
thank
you.
you. Do you believe about the F for love, as I've described it?
I love the concept, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again, Alara. And before we continue on with this really, really exciting episode, and I think I'm going to really enjoy it after chatting with you several times, even offline. What does back to basic mean to you, Alara?
It definitely means simple. Simple is in clear and concise. When we bring things back to the basics, we bring them back to kind of their natural, simple way of being. And that's really what life is about, is simplicity.
Hmm. Is it thank you again, Alara. Do you think that we're missing a lot of simplicity in this world, or do you think that you are missing a lot of simplicity in this world?
I definitely feel that we are missing a lot of simplicity. I believe that humans have this natural tact to make everything very complicated.
They do. They do. Yeah. Yeah, thank you again for recognizing that, and thank you again for coming on the show because we're all about making it simple and fun and educating people on what you do and obviously what I do. So thank you again for being here. Laura, what can I ask you a question? What does love mean to you?
Mm. To me, love is acceptance.
Hmm.
Acceptance of the entirety of ourselves, first and foremost, because every single conversation I have, I always direct it first and foremost at ourselves because our reality and all the people in our lives are merely reflections of ourself. So love starting with ourself is that absolute acceptance, the acceptance of all of our beauty, the acceptance of the parts of ourselves we might not think are so beautiful, the acceptance of our failures and the acceptance of our successes. And that full and absolute acceptance is truly what love is, not the emotion of love, but the truth of love.
Yeah, thank you again because there's a lot of people who don't know what love is. There's a lot of people they talk about love as in two people being in love, but they don't go
Mhm.
in deeper, right? People they talk about love as in lust. So
Mhm.
thank you again for describing that because there's a lot of people who defines that, and there are many other definitions. And whoever's listening here, you can definitely comment on that particular question there as what is love. Laura, when it comes to let it go and be free, what does that mean to you?
Well, to me, we attach so much to our reality. We have we give everything meaning.
mm,
So if something happens, it means something. We identify with our reality and we give all of this meaning to it, which creates a lot of stress and attachment.
mm,
Attachment to, let me give you an example. Like if you're going for a goal or striving for something, usually what most people do is they attach to the idea that it has to happen, and it has to happen in a very particular way, and it has to look a particular way. And letting go is really releasing yourself from those meanings and those attachments. And what truly happens when we let go is it's surrender, right? Letting
mm,
go is surrender. And what are we surrendering to? We're really surrendering to who we innately are and our own personal truth. And so when we really truly understand what letting go and surrender is, we arise to ourselves. And what happens is this fluidity in our space rather than this attachment and this tension of
mm,
hanging on.
mm. But but Laura, there are a lot of people. I guess let's include me also in there. Okay, there are times that I feel lonely. So
Mm,
how do I make myself free? Because
mm.
there are times, like for example, if when I lost my dad and when I have something going on in my life, I feel lonely. So how do we free ourselves? How do we let go? How do we move on?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with human companionship and being around other people when we feel lonely. But ultimately there's intimacy and connection with ourself. One of the things that I'm always talking about is, again, our relationship to our reality, our relationship to others, and really that feeling of aloneness really comes from where we're not deeply connected and ultimately intimate with our own personal being, our body, our sexual energy, our emotions. Because when you are deeply connected to yourself, you don't feel alone, because aloneness doesn't usually have anything to do with when you're around other people or you're actually by yourself, right? You can
Mm,
feel alone when you're surrounded by friends, even.
mm,
So that
mm,
aloneness comes from really ultimately where we are not connected to ourself. And this happens generally, at very young ages, between like 3 and 6 years of age, we are really taught to really deny a part of ourselves. And it starts with our emotions, where, we talk about it with little kids, like they hit terrible twos, right? When little kids become emotional and they start to emotionally express, our society has a way of suppressing it. Like, don't do that, stop, be quiet, go to your room. We're not comfortable with emotions, and we're not comfortable with those really strong expressions. So from very early ages, our society, our parents, people around us teach us to suppress ourselves. So we
mm,
basically tell ourselves there's a little part of me that is not okay, that's not accepted, right? Kind
mm,
of talking about our previous conversation about love. So we tend to not fully accept and love ourselves. This creates a deep disconnection. And
mm.
that disconnection is felt everywhere. It's felt in your relationships, it's felt in your sexual relationships, your intimate relationships, your friendships. It's felt in your career, in your life, because that disconnect, it's at the core of who you are.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for recognizing when I said alone. I did not mean physically in the corner. I meant physically,
Hmm.
well,
Yes.
spiritually inside. And thank you again for recognizing that, because people they think that lonely means that, well, no one's in my room,
Yes.
versus alone within ourselves. So thank you again for recognizing that.
Yes.
You keep on repeating the word impotent, being, I guess, sexual. I guess, is that
Hmm.
the right word? Um,
Hmm.
but what does that mean? I mean, why on the sexual term? Because I see on your website you keep on saying activating uh, the sexuality of your life. I mean, well, not
Hmm.
exact words, but you tell me. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I activate the sexual power within people, because one of the things I love to say is the universe is always having sex with itself. Because it
Okay.
is. Like, sexual energy is creation energy. It's also known as creative life force energy, Shakti, in the spiritual community. So, not all Shakti is sexual energy, but all sexual energy is Shakti. So, all sexual energy is creative life force energy. It is a very pure energy that is used to
Mm,
create life. I mean, just like sit with that for a moment. That is so beautiful when you think of it in its purest form. Right
mm,
now, humans, of course, are highly distorted in our sexual understanding and our sexual expression, once again, because we're not really connected to what it is. And we have a lot of shame there. And
mm,
so, the beauty of understanding our sexual power is that intimacy with yourself. And what happens when you connect to your sexual power in a very innocent and pure way is you really connect to your power to create your life very, very clearly and
mm,
powerfully. But not only that, like it goes on the list of like benefits, you become radiant. You are emitting this pure creative life force energy. Your energy levels go up, your vitality, because again, it's vitality. The vitality of your body, your health increases. There are so many benefits. You actually reduce in like your appearance of age, and you create this very intimate connection with yourself that then transfers to all of your connections, to your connections with your partner, with your friends, with life. Everything becomes extremely orgasmic, and I don't say that lightly. I mean it very, very precisely. Your life can actually become very orgasmic when we connect to the innocence and the purity of our sexual power.
thank you so much. You know, let me ask you this question, and it might maybe offend other people or not. I really don't know because we have a lot of religions around the world. We
Mhm.
have a lot of cultures around the world. With these type of words are kind of not, it's like a taboo word, isn't it? The orgasmic, the
Yes.
sexual and all that stuff. Can you explain in a detailed basic way as to what do you mean by the sexual energy power or the balance and the orgasmic feeling? Can you explain that if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, this is a taboo conversation. I want to really emphasize that. And taboo doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it. And we're really ready in our human in development and evolution to have these conversations because, as I said, sexual energy is innocent. Look at the universe. It's constantly having sex. We're not telling the universe that it's wrong for having sex,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Like, yes, there are boundaries and there are important ways in order to, but I'm not even talking about having sex with other people. I'm actually talking about the relationship with yourself and
Hmm.
your own sexual energy. That's
Hmm.
all I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So, I'm not even getting into the conversation of like, I'm not saying polyamorism or any of that. Like, that's not what I talk about. I talk about the relationship with ourselves. And so again, a lot of what we have in our minds and our belief structures around sexual energy is that it's shameful, or that it's like gotta, like gotta hide that. And, like it's very taboo. Like literally, that's what we understand sexual energy to be, taboo.
Hmm.
And what that's created is a lot of shame and guilt in ourselves around our own sexual desires and really around that entire space for ourselves. And the truth of it is again, it is a pure energy. When you really dive down into like the spiritual journey of working in your own limiting beliefs, because this is what the spiritual journey is about. It's about recognizing the belief structures that you carry and being able to work through yourself to release the belief structures that you don't desire to be aligned with anymore. Like, for instance, a belief structure would be that, my sexual energy is wrong or gross or bad, right? Like those belief structures don't literally feel good to us because they're
Hmm.
not fundamental truth. And
Hmm.
so when you work with yourself and you learn to release belief structures and you start to really connect to your sexual energy, to get to your question, there is an immense amount of pleasure that exists in
Hmm.
every single moment. Like right now, there is pleasure that we can feel with our bodies. And it doesn't have to be, again, this, I'm not talking about everybody, having a big orgasm together. That's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the availability of our sensuality and of our senses to ourselves, even in every single moment. And
Hmm.
again, the universe is doing this constantly. So why aren't we giving ourselves permission to have this level of pleasure?
Thank you so much for explaining that. When we when there are people out there talking about the pleasure, the sexuality, the orgasm, it is definitely a taboo. Now, are there a lot of people in this topic that they help people with this? I'm just asking from a curiosity point of view.
Yes. I mean, that's what I do. I help people with it.
Of course, of course. So, so what are the questions that people are asking when am I not connected, or my power is not there, or the energy is not there? How do you activate that? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, ironically enough, a lot of people that I work with have that feeling of loneliness. So, you really connected to it there.
Mm,
Um, because again, it's that disconnection with ourselves. And our sexual energy is such a very, very important part of who we are. And again, this isn't about having sex with other people. You could be what's the word, like completely non-sexual and still be connected to your own sexual energy and your own sexual power. So it's really not, it's really about this, is this connection with ourselves. And it's the sexual, people get really hit by the word power, right? Like that's another kind of taboo conversation. And what I mean by power is your ability to stand in your truth and have integrity, right? Integrity is a really beautiful word that I think a lot of people can connect to. Like a person that is of integrity is really functioning very highly within themselves. They're taking action, they're using their will, but they're also doing it from an aligned place that really serves all of those around them. Right. So
mhm,
I think integrity is a really great kind of entryway for people to connect to power because a lot of people have triggers around the word power.
mm. Yeah, thank you again for explaining that. And I know that you had to think a little when it comes to that answer. But Laura, let me ask you this, if you don't mind, is when people they ask you these questions, are they kind of ashamed of asking you this question? Have you noticed that there has to be a little hesitation, and the answer that you give them is sexual energy is sexual power?
Yeah,
Or
I wasn't thinking so much as I had forgotten the question.
yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah,
was
yeah,
trying to bring that back in.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely people come to me and there's again a lot of shame. A lot of shame
But
in
that's
our
normal, isn't it?
relationship. Absolutely. I had a bunch of it. I mean, I went through a very powerful experience. I was numb sexually and I didn't have any pleasure. And I
Mm,
didn't have any pleasure in my life. I didn't actually understand how to enjoy life,
mm,
and I was very shut down, and none of that did I understand why. And so I went through this very powerful journey with myself, and I had to release a lot of shame and a lot of guilt to really connect. So yes, people, you know, people feel very shameful and they feel very uncertain of even how to ask the question. And sometimes they're even uncertain of what they're really seeking in
mm,
themselves.
mm. Yeah, thank you again, because people, obviously we, according to the stereotype, men think about sexuality every 10 seconds.
Hmm.
Female, they think about sex maybe every 10 seconds or 15. Is that right? So I guess everybody, right? So do you think they are kind of ashamed of asking this question? That's why I asked that question. So thank you again for that. You know, how did you get into this activation mode? and this sexual orgasmic mode or helping mode through sexual energy mode. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because it's not a really a normal journey or travel that you get into. Something must have happened that it triggered you to get into this.
Yeah, great question. I just get totally lit right now with that question. Woo! It's such a great question because I had what's called a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. So, again, Kundalini Shakti is the energy that I was talking about that is pure creative life force energy. And we all have it. And it's in our pelvis, like right above the bottom of our body. It's in our pelvis. And it's known in a lot of different traditions. It's actually a very healing energy because it is pure creative life force energy, right? So when I started my spiritual journey, I was very, very new into my spiritual journey. I was really just beginning. I was meditating and that was about it. And I was working on horses at the time.
Hmm.
And so I was driving my car to go work on some horses. And I heard a message because I received messages. The message said, Om 3 times.
Hmm.
I wasn't a big Omer. That wasn't something that I did every day. But I was like, okay. So I omed 3 times. I gave it my all. I did a nice big all the way to my breath ended. And I did that 3 times. On the end of the third time, an energy, mind you, I did not know what Kundalini Shakti was at this time.
Hmm.
An energy shot through my body, and I went into a full body orgasm to the point that I had to pull the car over and I was in full body orgasm, which I
Hmm.
had never experienced. I had hardly experienced orgasm at all.
Hmm.
So I had no idea what was happening to me. And then after the orgasm was over, I was in this like, wow, like very euphoric, very, very blissed space.
Hmm.
And so I drove to work. I had the stereo turned up and I was like dancing in the car. I could barely stay in my seat. I was so lit, you
Hmm.
know? And at the time I kind of had this woman that I was working with and I called her and I was like, what just happened? And she didn't say what it was. She just said, try to push the energy down. And that didn't resonate with me. So I didn't do it.
Hmm.
And then what happened that's known as that kundalini awakening is a very, very powerful spiritual process that happens that really opens up that energy within you and it goes through the body. And really what that does is it really opens you up.
Hmm.
And I had kind of an intense experience for about 6 months after that. And when the experience started to kind of settle, I had this book fall into my lap called Kundalini Awakening. And the first chapter was around spontaneous Kundalini awakenings. And I had hit, like, it described
Hmm.
exactly what happened to me.
Hmm.
And from then on, it was really a process of what is this energy and how do I even work with it? What am I supposed to do with it? And it took me several years and I still wasn't connected to my sexual energy. I still wasn't connected to my orgasm. None of that continued. It took me many years of my own spiritual practice to then really just be redirected over and over again to this. And just really quickly, actually, what really brought this into my space was my partner. My
Hmm.
partner is highly sexual, high sexual energy. And as soon as I saw him, we actually met on Facebook dating. As soon as I saw him, I knew he was like my soulmate. I just felt it so incredibly strongly. And when we got together, his sexual energy was so potent and powerful.
Hmm.
And it was really a catalyst for me.
Hmm. But is it so how do we find those type of partners? I mean, does that make sense? Because uh, you know there's this one energy which is the emotional energy between the two partners, right? And the other energy is the sexual energy that you're talking about. The emotion,
Mhm.
I think we can understand, we can talk to each other, but how do you find someone with the sexual energy? I mean, is there like a practice that you can, I guess, wavelength or something, or is there a radar happening? Or I'm not being,
Yes.
I'm not being,
Radar. No.
honestly, I'm not being funny, but do you
No.
understand what I'm saying? Is that
Yes.
how do you find someone with that same energy?
Well, so he was a catalyst for me, but what I teach is that when you connect to this energy in yourself, sexual energy is highly, highly magnetic.
Hmm.
And magnetic in a good way, right? Because magnetism can also be a negative thing if you're magnetizing what you don't want. But when there's that clarity in yourself, then you are magnetizing what you want. And
Hmm.
when you create that deep intimacy and connection with yourself, there is first a very strong trust within yourself,
Hmm.
and the most incredible bond you could ever imagine is with
Hmm.
yourself.
Hmm.
And so when you've cultivated that here, manifesting, creating, magnetizing, using your radar, because I really loved that, to then find a partner is so much easier and clearer.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, Laura, thank you again for answering all these questions because I was kind of curious at how to find someone like that. And I did, by the way. So that's not the point. The point is
Yay.
that there are other people who have not found that radar, frequency that you're talking about, right? So that's why I'm asking. There's a new segment that we have started on season 3, which is the rapid fire round. And are you ready to go and play that game? Because it's some words and some sentences, whatever comes in your mind, then we're going to go and talk about that. Is that okay with you?
Let's do it. Yep.
Let's do it. Okay. The first word is going to be love.
The heart.
Uh, the next word is reality.
An illusion.
The other one is attachment.
Painful.
The other word is lonely.
Disconnection with yourself.
Sexuality.
Such a beautiful and innocent energy.
Hmm. Energy.
Everything.
Power.
Who you truly are.
Hmm. Life force.
That which enlivens us.
Hmm. Orgasmic.
Ah, yum.
Shame.
The vibration closest to death.
Guilty.
Makes me want to cry.
Guilt.
Right here in the heart. I feel it.
Pleasure.
Our birthright.
Hmm. Magnetic.
Mm, drawing in, pulling in, and receiving.
Hmm. Alara.
Fuck yes.
And and back to basics.
Simple clarity.
Yeah. Thank you so much for playing the rapid fire for back to basics, and I really enjoyed it. Um Understanding who you are and what you are when it comes to these words and what it kind of means to you. So thank you again for that. So Alara, before you leave today, let me ask you this. Is there a certain book that you read that it kind of resonates with you when it comes to the world that you're in, the bubble that you're in, which I'm telling you, you're enjoying? So is there a book that it's kind of enjoying
Mm.
and makes you like alive?
I mean, there's a great book called Pussy, and it's a great book for men and women. It's written really, for women, but it's one of those books that if men read it, they will really understand a deeper expression of the embodied woman.
Thank you.
Plus, it's a fun word to say.
I know that is true. Thank you so much for saying that because you and I
Uh,
talked offline on that. So thank you again for that.
yes.
But before you leave, before you leave today, do you have any last words for Back to Basics and how was your journey on Back to Basics on top of that?
Yeah, I've definitely been truly delighted to be here. I love the rapid fire. To me, that is a really fun game. So thank you so very much. And thank you to all your listeners for listening and tuning in and being open minded. This stuff creates an open mind. It takes an open mind for us to sometimes face the things that make us uncomfortable. So I appreciate each and every listener out there who has made it through the whole episode and is really just open.
Yeah, no, thank you again. There's I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are listening to this show are uncomfortable. There are a lot of people who are comfortable. And whoever's listening, thank you again for supporting all of us from these uncomfortableness, comfortable moments that we had on the episode. And there were some few laughters, and I definitely laughed about it in a good way. And I'm telling you, I love the all the nuggets that you have shared today on this show, Alara. And thank you again for supporting me, even offline and all the social medias that you have helped me along the way when it comes to my show. So thank you again for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So guys, today we spoke with Alara today and we talked about the basics of what? Sexuality. We talked about orgasmic and we talked about life force. I mean, those are the words that we use on this show. And it's not an easy topic. It is a taboo topic. But the moment that we become comfortable about it, that actually means that people are talking about it around the world. Now, as usual, as always, there's a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully Alara will like this. This quote of the day is: sexual energy is this powerful, creative force inside of us that manifests and creates our entire life. Guys, as usual, as always, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care. God bless. Keep on listening to Back to Basics. I'll see you next time on Back to Basics.
That was wonderful. That was so good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah. What's more back to basics than sexual energy? It created everything, like that's definitely back to basics.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. You should say that on one of the videos.
Yes. I definitely
But thank you.
will.
Thank you for doing this. And are you satisfied? Let's put it that way, because I want to make sure
Yes.
you as a
Yes.
guest needs to be comfortable.
Yeah. No,
Because
that was totally different and that felt so good. So thank you.
Hi guys, thank you again for tuning in to Back to Basics and listening to the excellent episode that we had today with our guest. With your love and support, we do need you to at least rate our show, review our show, because it does make us stronger day by day, week by week, as I usually say on my episodes. And there are three things in this episode that it makes a hit for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. So guys, take care, God bless, and remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and see you next time on Back to Basics.